Everybody got the sheet back there on the chair?
Yes.
Some light bedtime reading tonight. Put that in the nightstand. Memorize it all. The quiz will be 5 minutes after class is over. We're going to go through this pretty fast and furious. I wanted to say a couple things. I appreciate you coming for one. It's a miserable day today. Might get windy. You might hear some creaking and cracking. This house will not come down, so don't run for the door. If you see me run for the door, then okay, follow me out. Frank will lead us to safety, right? We had our class meeting for 2026, so I sit with our marketing director last week. We've kind of got a battle plan going for next year. You're going to see on the website here pretty quick. All the new stuff up, a lot more DIY. I can tell you we're doing a lot more DIY next year. I'm going to do some things a little different. I'm going to try to cut classes down to half an hour and be very specific on topics. So you're going to see probably some of the same classes in 2026, but it's going to be a little bit different as far as what we have. Why do you have 3 Japanese maple classes? Well, we're going to talk about selection and varieties, and then in the summer we're going to talk about growing retainers. Then the fall we're going to talk about pruning. So we will kind of attack things a little bit different. Pruning is a really hard one for me to stand up here and pontificate about how to do this and that and the rest. I'm standing next to a tree. I'm not doing a huge specimen. I'm not in your yard. So that's kind of the gist of this, is ask a lot of questions. I'm going to bring up some simple things. We'll talk about some tools, some different methods, teach you how to prune, but you're going to have to go home and look in your yard. What is that plant? What do I do with this? Ask if you don't know. That's the big question. I see a lot of people get to winter and they think, oh, it's getting cold, it's time to prune the whole yard. That is not what this class is about, because there's a vast majority you do not want to prune in the wintertime. There's a lot of things we'll talk about today. Who would rather be out in the yard here in January versus June pruning? I'll take June, right? A little nicer weather, probably not the rain gear, you're not freezing to death, the hands aren't cold. We can get some of that stuff in summer. So there are some things we need to do here in the winter or to get prepared, but there's also a lot of this stuff, we've got options down the road, okay? So ask if you don't know, and then hopefully we'll be able to give you a hand that way. So I brought some branches in, I brought some plants in, I brought some tools in. We're gonna go crash course on the winter time. So this is not that I'm gonna go home, I should say repeat after me. I'm not gonna go home today and do all this pruning, because that's not, again, what this is about. Give it frost. I don't know when it's gonna come. Nobody does. We ratchet our crystal ball here in the fall, and it's like, oh, it's going to happen on November 10th. Who's got frost so far? Yeah, a couple people have. I thought we might in Everett. I was down on a work trip, and we were frozen solid at our resort down south of Olympia those couple of days in early October. I thought, yes, now we can get at it. It hasn't really happened here yet. So
No, it's been totally
might be a week, 2, 3, might happen in a month, but at some point we will get that first frost. Now plants are dormant. Now we are safe to start pruning. We want to wait for the sap to start flowing and things to cool off, and then we're okay. And at that point, I have all the way till the tail end of winter. Again, doesn't need to be December or January or February, but before we get to the 1st of March, a lot of these things we'll talk about today we need to get done, okay? So how to make some basic cups. Now, you saw me, or a couple people saw me up out of class. I always keep my pruner sharp. We sell these simple sharpeners. They work great on hand pruners, blades, loppers, not your saw. But if I'm doing pruning, I'm going to make sure I'm sharp, and I'm going to go have at it. This is something I keep in my pocket. It's a very cheap little sharpener that I can use and use and use. I'm probably on 5 years with this one now, and I probably will get a new one. It also has a place I can put some oil or disinfectant in it. So very useful, I think, little pruning tool for gardeners. So if I'm going to make a proper cut, I'm just going to borrow one of the many branches I brought in. Who knows what this is? So this is specifically a PG hydrangea, okay? So if I had this in my yard, because we'll prune it now and I'll do it later, I'm not going to prune hydrangea until March 1st. This is not one we're going to do now, next week, Christmas, January, March 1st. Wait till we're coming out of the tail end of winter. Now I can do this going into winter. Now I'm deadheaded. I don't worry about it breaking, the weight, the snow, whatever. That's fine. But if I'm going to cut this down, I'm going to wait and do that in March, okay? So I'm going to use this twig as an example. When I'm doing pruning, is it the end of the world that I go flat? Maybe not, but I would always try to go 45 degrees up here in the winter flat surface, collects water, maybe we got rot. I do not want to be right against that bud. That one will not grow. The next one will, and then I'll have what? Dead stub. I don't want to cut it in the middle. I'm going to have, again, a dead stub. So if you're going to take the time to do this right, we want to go about 1/2 inch or an inch above that bud, cut it at an angle, that's ready to go for spring. The one stem that I had coming up now becomes 2 buds that break, 1 flower now becomes how many? 2 for 2026. So I'm getting a fuller plant, getting more flower, and making the hydrangea happy. Now we're going to talk about a lot of old wood bloom, new wood bloom here on certain things, but I know I can do this with PG hydrangea because this blooms on new wood. I could cut it here, I could cut it here, I could cut it here. I'm going to run out of wood. I go all the way down to the first set of buds. If I don't want this, and I want this, cut it down a little farther. It still is going to bloom. It's not going to affect the flowering. We've got a happy plant. But for this part, try to keep those angle cuts 45 degrees, especially with roses, which we'll talk a little bit. But that's a way to get the water runoff. That will heal properly, and I won't have all those dead stubs, okay? Now, what I essentially did as I massacred this thing down is I headed it back. If I looked at that next thing, types of pruning. The 2 main things we're going to talk about today are heading back or thinning, okay? If I have a branch that's too long, it's out of whack, it's going the wrong direction, and I don't want it, I'm going to head that back to shorten it and redirect it. Does that make sense? If I'm looking at a tree, but I'm not worried about heading it back, but I'm like, I like more light, I want more air, I want to thin it out. That's our other type, is we would call thinning. So I'm not going in and heading things back by just chopping off branches everywhere. I'm going into the middle, and I'm going to be taking out interior limbs. You see, like that one there. We'll do this one at the end of class. But I can open up that whole plant, get better air circulation, have less disease, have a much nicer tree in my landscape by thinning it out. Again, do I want to thin it out in February? I certainly can. Or do I want to wait until it's maybe June and a little nicer out? Absolutely fine to do that too, okay? So that's kind of the option for the gardener. So we're going to talk about a lot of heading back and thinning with some different plants here. But I brought in a few tools just to show you. Everybody's probably got their favorite pruning weapons, right? We got hand pruners. I think these old Felco number 2s have been loved for about 25 years by me now. So if you take care of your stuff, a quality pruner will last you a lifetime. So Felco's, $100, I think they still are at the stores. We do Zenport, which almost looks identical. They got smart and knocked it off even with the red handle. But these are $40. So much, much less. And I think for home gardeners, if you're not me pruning day after day and 1,000 roses in January and the arboretum and all the rest of it, this will last you a life as long as you don't leave them in the yard waste container, right? That's where the red handle will help you. So the key with picking a hand pruner is going to be you. I was blessed with gigantic hands, okay, so I can handle a pretty big pruner. I don't have problems. I'm getting old, so eventually I will, and I'll go to a different style. But I can have a big, classic, heavy pruner. I've got my mother, you know, bless her heart in her 80s, still gardening all over the place. This is one, the handle rotates, gives. So instead of having to clamp with my wrist, now it rolls, and if I have wrist issues, maybe a little less hand strength, that's a great choice for some people. Still works just as well, okay? A little bit different. You can see the handle style depending on, again, what makes you comfortable. Something more classic, again, a little more ergonomic with that style of handle like that. And this is a new one. I've got a pair now, the big, huge ones, okay? And I've had a lot of people buy these for two-handed pruners. They're tired of a lopper that's this big, they buy this. They have maybe a little smaller hands than me, but now they can grab both handles and really do some good work and not have to worry about the size of it, okay? So that's a pretty useful newer model from them. You got little snips, little shears. I'll speak for me. I thought Maya would never, ever, ever have a pair of either of these. And guess what's in my garage? Both of them. Because it's not winter, but fine pruning, pansies, deadheading, little perennials, soft wood. Very sharp, very useful without having to get a bigger styler, okay?
My favorite.
Those are good ones to use, yeah. Now we try to find all kinds of fun stuff. I can tell you this, if you can't pick this up, very, very light. We've had a lot of, I'm an older gardener now, so I'll speak for me. A lot of older gardeners that maybe are like, ooh, that's really useful. I can use that very easily. And again, it's not as much leverage, very, very lightweight. So you'll find things like that in there. The classic lopper is this. Now I have a pair of these in my garage. I brought some of my tools in here somewhere. I don't know where my bucket went. Oh, it's right behind me. But I have a pair of these as well. This is probably, for me, the least used tool for me. I use it on a very few specific things, but I find, again, a lot of people have a hard time getting into the center to get the right angle and then leverage cut that piece out of there without leaving stubs, or again, it's just too much strength to get that lopper closed. So smaller lopper, yes. The bigger one, you gotta have some pretty big open things, I think, to use that one quite as much. Now, I showed you the sharpener. That's a must. Santa's coming here for the gardeners. There's your stocking stuffer. If you've got a gardening friend, I think these are like 15 bucks. You're gonna get 20% off of the class, so there's a $12 stocking stuffer. That's a great little sharpener. I have one at work. We use them here for our staff, one in the garage. My wife stole the first one I bought because she figured out it does knives and little scissors in the kitchen too. So now she has one and I have one, so she doesn't get dirt on her knives, right? So we've got sharpener. This is probably the single most used tool for me right there. So it looks simple. It comes in a little case. We call this a pocket saw. Clip it on the belt, put it in the pocket. Sharp as heck, be careful. But if I have that out, I'll bring mine because I don't want to break the package open. So here's mine from my garage. It's been well loved for a few years. If I open this up, right, and lock it, I can really get in to very tight spots in a shrub or a tree. I can get into a very tight spot, make a very surgical cut on it, and not leave stubs. This to me is maybe a little more useful than large loppers at some point, depending on, again, the plant we're talking about. But whether it's the small or the full-size version, I can get into those areas that are really tough and get things done right and not have to worry about kind of trying to get the angle right with my hand pruners or loppers as well. Yes?
Do you get a sharpener for those too?
We don't. This is one here. And I do a lot more than probably any of you would prune. Between here, my house, helping at the arboretum and places, I probably get 5 years out of this saw before I'm like, all right, you are dull, you're done. I could take it to an actual shop and probably pay the same price I would pay to have a brand new one in my pocket. So I just get a new one every probably 5 years. The big ones last me a little longer. I don't use this as much, but I use this a lot. This is one of my favorite little simple, cheap pruning tools. Now, a couple other things that I brought just to show you. We want to keep our stuff lubricated. So I have 3-in-1 oil. This can has been in my garage. It only goes on my pruners. I've probably had this for 20 years, and it's still probably a third full. I don't need a new one yet. So this is something I can squirt on my tools to clean them, lubricate them, particularly the blades to protect them, the spring mechanism that makes life easier, my wheel, all that stuff. I can go on, I do this with everything once a winter, then during the season I can touch up as well. So 3-in-1 oil works great. I tend to recommend people have like rubbing alcohol. Sterilize your pruners. If you're out in your yard and you're thinking at all that this plant's diseased or I'm cutting dead wood, or it's just a good practice to get into. It's the easiest way to transfer a pathogen from point A to point B to point C across your yard is a physical cut. So when I'm done with the maple tree, let's give it a quick rub with rubbing alcohol. We move on to the next one. Okay, if you're going to be safe, that's a great way to think of it too. The last two are hedge shears. Now I'm not using this a lot in the winter time. Okay, this is for our hedge thing, but this is a way. I got extendable handles on this one, makes it easy to get a little higher. They're very sharp, very easy to use, but if I'm clipping my boxwood, my arborvitae, a lot of the things we're not doing right now, I've got plants I can shear to save me some time. I'm not going to walk out to my hedge and do this for 8 hours and try to get every leaf right. I'm going to take the hedge clippers and get the shape I want, and then off we go. Make it much, much easier to do, okay? So good hedge clippers. The last one is the pole pruner. Who's got a pole pruner? So this is the one for me. So a little bit heavier, right? Bigger pole. This isn't probably for everybody. This gets up about 15 feet. If I spin this open, I can extend this pole out and get up about 15 feet. I've got lopper, or I could screw my saw blade on this as well and get some sawing done up top. This isn't for everybody, but I have a lot of people, me included years ago, that go buy a cheap pole pruner that's got rope. We use it for a year, it breaks, it goes thing, and we're just, I don't even like that thing. We're done with it, we gotta go buy another one. So this one cost you a couple $100 for a good quality one, but I have chain, so I'm not gonna bind with the rope anymore, and this will do a lot of damage in the yard. I really use this quite a bit up on bigger trees, thinning out the center of things or controlling things by heading it back. Now we can order these for you anytime. We typically get this Fiskars one in because it's very similar, but it's a lot cheaper. We do have a couple of those around if you need a new pole pruner. So you can always ask. Sometimes online they have pretty good ones as well, but look at your options, because if you're planning on buying one and having it for a lifetime, it's like anything, it seems like, in the world. Buy a nicer quality tool, take care of it, you will have that for a lifetime, okay? Now, if we get into kind of some basics of why to prune here, so like I mentioned at the beginning, you know, this class is not to send you home and have you prune every single plant in your yard in the next 3 months. You know, if it needs to get pruned, great. If it doesn't have to be. It's totally up to you. But I would have a purpose. What is the whole point of me spending my time pruning that plant? An easy thing is always fruit, berries, more flowers. If I get something pruned right here in the winter, that rewards me with a better flower display next year, right? More apples on my cherry, more apples on my apple, more blueberries on my blueberry. We can do a lot of that, okay? Improve the shape and the structure. That's huge with me. I am not a plant butcher. I apologize if you are. It's your yard. Do what you want. But I don't have a chainsaw on the stick. I'm not interested in using it on my Japanese maples and every tree in my yard. I would rather let that tree do what it does naturally and focus on keeping it healthy by thinning it out, removing dead wood, watching for disease, things like that, but keeping that shape natural, what it's meant to be in the yard. I don't need to take this Japanese maple and cut it in half. It'll leaf out. I'm not going to kill it, but it's not going to look right to me. The maple should be open and airy and get some structure to it, okay? Air circulation and disease. Who likes to spray? You do. Nice. You're the first one I think ever. I don't mind. It's kind of something therapeutic about it sometimes. You get to get rid of something. But if you don't want to spray, we want to keep disease to a minimum. Air circulation is everything. If I have a twiggy, messy, old tree that no sun is penetrating in because it's so thick and bushy, and I don't have the wind and the air moving through, I'm going to have mildew, scab, black spot on my rose, all that stuff. If we keep things thin and healthy, the air moves through, we're going to cut down our spraying that we have to do quite a bit, okay? So the big one for me, again, no one says you have to prune everything every year. This is something I go through with my dad quite a bit in his yard because he thinks everything needs to get pruned in the winter. Still, okay? So to prune or not to prune, that is the question. Let them tell you when it's time to prune. Did it struggle last year? You didn't get flower, you had disease. Watch those things in the yard, and that might help you make a decision on what needs to happen for the next season. You know, is the neighbor's lawyer threatening to sue you because you're blocking their view? There's a good reason to prune, right? We're blocking the view. We're breaking the code. You know, there's something card in the mailbox. Is it over the front door? You know, this sometimes goes back to the wrong plant in the wrong place, but that's a different discussion. If you had to go out and prune that thing twice a year to keep it away from your front door, it's probably not the right plant to put there. You should give it some room and get something different. But that's a different class, right? Now, knowing the plants in your yard, this is going to be a big part of kind of what I'm hoping you take out of this class today. I'm going to show you some branches, I'm going to show you some plants, but kind of knowing the plants in your yard is going to be a big part of this. Again, ask if you don't know. So watch for disease and winter damage. If I walk out, we're having a windstorm today. If I go out and see something crack or break or get damaged here over the winter, I'm going to probably take my saw and try to get that fixed immediately. I don't need to leave it on there and wait till spring. If it's cracked, it's broken, something happened, let's get it off of there now and move on to the next thing, okay? Prune after bloom is probably my #1 rule. There's very, very few exceptions to that, but if you've been into my classes before, that's the one thing I always try to get people to take home. Prune it after it blooms. I could list 1,000 examples right now. Who's got rhododendrons? Everybody raises their hand. So what's gonna happen right now if I go out and prune my rhododendron? I got no flower next year because it sent all its buds over the summer that are sitting there all winter that open up in the spring. If I have to prune my rhodie or want to, I wait for it to flower and I prune it. It's as simple as that. Azalea, camellia, lilac, dogwood tree. I could go on, but all the plants that we grow in our yard, I think people think about winter and essentially you're cutting off your flowers. If you know, it's not going to hurt the plant most of the time, but what's the point of having that rhododendron? You get that 1 month of the year, wow, look at that thing in my yard, and you just cut your flowers off, you don't have that wow moment in the landscape, okay? So kind of ask and think, prune after bloom is always a great way to go. When we talk about these different plants, and when you ask me questions, that's going to be my focus. Does that plant bloom on new wood, or does it bloom on old wood? Does everybody kind of understand what I say with that? Do I have to leave that wood from last year to give me the flowering in 2026, or does it not matter? Yes?
Okay, I have a hydrangea.
Yep.
That is
Yep.
15 years floppy
Yep.
mess
Yep.
by my front door.
Yep.
I don't know what it is.
Yep.
It has round
So,
flowers.
so we'll talk hydrangeas here in a second, because that's
New
going
or old.
that's going to be a big part of this class, because I think hydrangea is the poster child for this discussion. The different species do different things, and she brings up exactly the point. What do I have? And that's what we're going to try to figure out today. Okay. My other rule would be the 1/3 rule. Now I break this. I'm sure a lot of you have broken this over the years. There's plants we can get away with it. There's other ones we can't. But if I look at my specimen, shrub, tree, don't care what it is, and it's 6 feet tall, I'm always going to be safe by taking 1/3 of the height or 1/3 of the spread. If I go more than that, I'm taking a chance. Now again, I've taken rhododendron when I bought my house from 9 feet to 1 foot because it needed it, and said, hey, if you come back, great. If you don't, I'll get something different there that was right for the spot. This to me goes back to that right plant in the right place discussion. If you've got something you have to butcher every year to keep in that place, it might not be the right plant for that spot in the landscape, okay? So right spot and the right plant is going to keep down the pruning mess for sure. Now, if I look through, so all this stuff I brought up here, I'm going to start whipping through some things just to show you. Now, you brought up hydrangeas, and I'm going to start with that because I think it's a great example. Now, I took that PG hydrangea. My flower carcass is down here somewhere, right? So PG hydrangea, or hydrangea paniculata, that species, that is all new wood bloom. So if I have a cone shape hydrangea, not blue, not purple, it's always white, pink to red. There's no other color, and it doesn't change with pH. That's for sun, first of all, and for two, I can do whatever I want to it, and I always have flower, okay? Now what you have, I'm guessing, is the big round mophead hydrangea, okay? So here's one here with the beautifully dried flower I borrowed this morning. Sorry, buddy, you weren't time to, I should have waited till March 1st, right? I had to take one for the class. So let's pretend, I'm gonna make two, there we go. We made it dormant, right? So we're out here in the winter. Again, I would always do this and deadhead it before winter. I don't want that weight, I don't want snow, I don't want something breaking. If I look at hydrangea wood, it's not really wood this season. It's green, it's still firm, but it's not really wood. If you looked at that PG, it was brown and it was woody. This is not. If I do this now, I'm asking for winter damage. I can guarantee you, we get cold, I'm gonna lose a bud, lose 2 buds, I'm gonna lose some wood on it. So waiting till March just means I can look out there, look at 2 fat swollen buds and go, boom, I'm ready to go, okay? Now this is Aisha, because I know it, because we planted this. This is a strictly old wood bloomer. So I can go down a bud, 2, but I cannot go down farther than that, okay? I have a feeling you're gonna have to bite the bullet. This is what I try to tell people with hydrangea. You inherited a house, you bought one, you don't know what kind it is. You could bring me a flower, and I could not tell you what kind it is. I can tell you it's a moped hydrangea, but there is a bazillion flavors out there. So what I would recommend to you or anybody who is not sure, prune it, because you're going to find out next year. It's not going to kill it. It's always going to grow, but you might not get flowers. So we need to get it back to size one way or another, right? So we go way down. We get to the base in March. We get dead wood out of there. We cut some stems out. We open it up. We get all of our canes cut down to probably a foot or two. Okay.
It's as tall as you. So
Exactly.
Where do I cut?
So
At
I would
knee
go,
level?
again, hydrangea is what we call opposite bud. I'm always going to have perfect pairs of buds all the way down the stem. So you're going to go down to the farthest one you possibly can. And then you're going to go, okay, let's see what happens. It's going to leaf out. It's going to grow. You're going to get to next June and go, I got 2 flowers. Now I know I have an old wood bloomer, and this is the problem with hydrangea. Okay, I let it go for 4 or 5 years, then I cut it down and skip a year. Okay, or we take it out, we put it somewhere else, we get rid of it, and we get a modern hydrangea, because now 99% of what you're going to find at a local garden center is going to be either or. Even moped hydrangeas now, old school ones are still old school. There's nothing wrong with them. I have one too. But if I want the flexibility to prune or not to prune, I'm going to buy a new one, because I can keep that 3 or 4 feet every season and never have to worry about lack of flower. Does that help?
Yeah.
Okay. So you're going to report back next year with a 1,000-word essay. This is how I pruned, and this is how. No, I'm just kidding. That's how it turned out, right? Okay. So hydrangeas. So the big 2 are going to be, again, mophead, which could be either type of wood, old or new. PG is always new, okay? There's other types too. Anyone have oak leaf or any other hydrangeas? So oak leaf's an old wood bloomer. I can tell you, be like this, and they are all old wood. So again, bud or 2 is fine, but I can't cut it back super hard, or I will skip a year of flowering on oak leaf hydrangeas for them, okay?
Is that true for the mini munchkin oak leaf?
Yeah, any oak leaves. Yeah, all species of Corsifolia are always going to be old wood bloom.
I inherited the house or got the house.
Yep.
It's a hydrangea that goes along the fence.
Okay, climbing.
Yes.
Okay, so climbing hydrangea is actually all old wood flower, but again, being a vine, it grows very fast. I have that in my yard as well. I get big lace cap flowers here and there, but I'm still fine pruning it. You're not buying that honestly for the flower. I think you're buying that because it's got great foliage and it's structure for the fence line. So up to you, but if we did cut it back hard, it's gonna grow. I'm just not gonna get those flowers for that one season. Okay, so who's got lilac? If we got lilacs, I got some big lilacs. So this isn't quite dormant yet. I should pick all the leaves off of these, so that'll take too long. So we borrowed a piece of my lilac this morning, okay? Still got foliage, it's about to turn yellow, drop its leaves. But this again is a great example of winter. Now, if I have a healthy lilac, right now, I already have all my flower buds sitting there for 2026. If I walk out here in the winter, you're too big, I'm cutting you in half. It's gonna grow, not gonna kill it. Lilac is hard to kill, but I have no flower. And the whole reason to have lilac and wall shrubs is I want fragrant flowers for those 2 months in May and June, right? So I'm not gonna prune this in the wintertime. I can remove dead wood, I can tidy it up, it has a big piece out of whack. I'm fine with all that, but if we're going to reduce the plant or keep it down in size, we're gonna let it bloom, we're gonna be out in the sunshine in mid-June, and that is when we're gonna prune it, okay? Because now we prune, we send up growth, sets flower buds in the summer, fall, and we're good to go for 2027 at that point. Does that make sense? Okay? So no matter what kind of lilac it is, it's always old wood bloom, and I would try to focus on corrective pruning in the winter, thinning it out of whack again, all that stuff, but we're not gonna just cut it back until it's done blooming. Then we're gonna be much safer, okay?
I've been deadheading mine.
Yep. Deadhead, you're OCD like me. I like it because I deadhead my flowers too. All right, we're gonna keep the debris pile. We're not hitting you with anything, right?
No, I'm fine.
Okay, let's keep going here. How about a rose? Who's got roses? Okay, now I borrowed this rose. Am I gonna be in a rush to walk out and cut this rose off? It's still fall, it's still blooming, and it might be still blooming at Christmas, right? still blooming. I'm not gonna run out and cut this off. But if I have a rose, I typically try to tell people Veterans Weekend here, you got about 2 weeks, and President's Weekend. Those are our 2 weekends a year to think about the rose garden. If I'm going into the winter, I'm gonna try to get my rose to a safe point with pruning, Veterans time, or very close to that, mid-November. It might still have flowers, it might still have leaves. I'm fine with all that. It's either that or I gotta get this done President's Day. I don't want any of last year's leaves. I don't want thin canes. We remove everything that's skinnier than a pencil and we open that thing up. With the rose, if I'm down at the ground here, I want my open hand. I want a big open structure. I don't want a bunch of twigs in the middle and crowding. I want to keep disease down, and by pruning I can accomplish that.
Climbing rose.
So we're going to thin it up. This is one, so we'll do climbing. We're going to thin up a shrub rose. We're going to open it up. We're going to head it back. We're going to do all that because rose is a new wood blooming shrub. We deadhead it in the summer. What happens? Shoots up a cane, blooms right away again, right? Because it blooms on new growth. I don't have to worry about leaving this or leaving that. I would recommend you try to go as low as you can with your shrub roses, Austins, Floribunda, Hybrid Tea, all that stuff. She mentioned climbing rose. That is the opposite. I've just spent 7 years waiting for my climbing rose to reach the top of my arbor. Am I going to cut that down to a foot? No. I'm not going to cut it. I'm going to look at the shape and get rid of anything that's skinnier than a pencil, open it up, look at the structure, I'm good to go. I'm not interested in cutting it back as far, okay? But shrubs, I am. You're gonna end up with roses taller than me that are hanging out over the garden if we have those old tall type roses that don't get pruned. So heading those back, Veterans Weekend, President's Weekend. Those are the 2 big times. And when I do rose class, in February, we talk about this spring pruning as well, okay? So Mr. Rose, don't run home and do it today. He's still got flowers on him. But you got in the next few weeks here, we'll start to get that ready to go for winter, okay?
When do you want to take off the leaves on your roses?
So I would not, there's some years I've went out and got it pretty good in the fall, but that to me, I think we would all agree, we never know what the winter is going to bring around here. We might have a mild winter with no winter and things are still blooming. I've had roses blooming after Christmas before. That's fine, but I still want it to start over. So that's where that President's Weekend in February, we strip leaves, we clean canes, we cut it down. We have to make it start over. Your naked eye is going to look at that rose foliage and go, oh, look at all those pretty green leaves. It's fine. You cannot see the black spot, the mildew, all the rest of it that's already on there, that if I leave it, that's what I'm going to have for the season. So I want to start over, get it sprayed to start the season off, get it fed, and then off we go for another season of nice roses, okay? Now, I thought this would be kind of fun to bring in. I don't think I ever brought one of these in. Look at how cool that is this time of year. So this is a great example. This is what we call beautyberry. Anybody got one of these in their yard? We call it husky berry. It's a husky purple for fall, right? Put my hat back on. So husky berry, this blooms in the summer and produces my berries in the fall. This could just as easily be cotoneaster, snowberry, one of our natives. We carry a lot of plants around here that bloom nicely in summer, berry in the fall. This will turn leaves, go dormant. The birds will borrow some. They're done here in a couple months, and it's bare twigs for the winter until we do this again next year. Because this blooms on new wood and then gets immediately berries, this is one we would get coming out of winter. So if I had this in my yard and I did not want 6, 8 feet, 10 feet tall, and I wanted to keep it maybe a little smaller or control it, I would do this coming out of winter. We would cut it down, then it shoots up when it grows, still blooms in summer, still gets our berries, then off we go for another season. Is that making sense? So something like this is a really cool fall plant. So I'm not going to run out and do this because I still get to enjoy my berries for a few weeks here. But at some point in the spring, hydrangea time or a little after, I can go ahead and cut that back, okay? Who's got 9 bark? Physocarpus, we call this. Again, I'm not in a rush to do this. I use these a lot in my yard for the foliage color. Oranges, yellows, dark purples, different tones. It's a great structure shrub with really cool peely bark on top of that. So again, this blooms in May or June, much later, gets little seeds on it for the birds, which are on there now. We're gonna turn color, drop our leaves here pretty quick. Now I have this partially because I think they look cool in the winter. Peely bark, looks like I might be hanging out in Montana somewhere, get some snow on it. I've got like a paper bark kind of shrub looker to enjoy in the wintertime. So I'm thinning again, opening it up, but I'm not just gonna go walk out and cut this thing into a ball in the wintertime. If I'm going to head it back, I'm gonna probably do that during the summer after I see how it grows out. Okay, that's a little too much. Let's cut you down. Again, same principle as everything. If I cut above a side branch, then that's where my direction goes. I can kind of tell my shrub which way to grow, okay? So something like 9 bark. Twig dogwood, who's got twig dogwood? So this is another one here, opposite bud. You can see my stems, 2 pairs, all up and down, kind of like hydrangea. So if I prune above any one of these, okay, looks like I pruned that right away, but now this will bush out and I have a little bit smaller, lower, and a thicker, bushier stem. This is a plant I buy because I want the red twigs. I want to enjoy this over the winter. I like it during the growing season, but if I slightly head those back every year, or this is sometimes even when I use my hedge clippers on in the summer, I will have the maximum amount of those little bright red twigs to enjoy during the winter time, which is what this plant is all about, okay? Little twig dogwood.
So when are you saying to prune that one?
So this one, you got to me 2 intervals. If I want to, again, clean out the base, dead wood, open it up a little bit, anytime over the winter, you're going to have a much better time to see the structure. But if I'm going to do this and reduce the size, which is perfectly fine with twig dogwood, I'm going to probably walk out in like June because I want to wait for it to grow up, do its blooming thing. I can see when my foliage is, I can reduce it. Now the summer, I get all those bright red twigs come out and I got a really nice looking plant for the next winter, okay?
Is it a good time to ask about dogwood trees since you hit dogwood?
We'll do dogwoods here in a sec, so I'm going to do a lot of trees. So now, anyone know what that is? Everybody got lace leaf maple? Everybody should have lace leaf maple in their yard. So let's pretend that I'm the trunk, right? All my branches come out and they hang down, right? We grow in a shell. We get another bud, it comes up, and then it adds another layer, and then another layer, right? We're just a little weeping tree. Now this is a plant here, and I'm telling you have to do in the wintertime. If I walk out in the summer, the spring, I can't see where to prune. I had a tough time with this on mine this morning going, I don't know if I'm in a good spot, but I gotta take it to class, so I cut one off. So I wanna see the wood, I wanna see the structure, because this is a one, it's gonna be up to you, again, in your yard, but this to me is one of the nicest art pieces you could have in a garden. It's got structure, looks nice in the winter with no leaves. It's a great specimen plant. But if I'm gonna prune this, I'm gonna get up underneath it in the wintertime and I'm gonna get all the dead wood out. Who's got lace leaf that's very thick and twiggy? I can promise you, if you don't even worry about this and you go underneath it this winter, doesn't need to be today, next month, sometime before we get to March, and we literally strap the gloves on and we snap out all that gray or beigey colored wood that's just naturally dead. Doesn't mean there's a problem. You get all that out of there and then you stand back and you probably go, wow, my problem is fixed because you've gotten rid of all the clutter. There's my OCD side coming out. So you got rid of all the clutter and we've got a much nicer looking plant. Now we can stand back at the perimeter and go, okay, let's pretend this is my lawn. You know, I've had one for over 25 years. I'm not going to dig up 1 foot of grass every year because I want to let it get bigger. I'm going to try to let it come up and let it grow back down. Let it come up, let it go right back down. So if I'm looking at a branch like that, I'm not just going to take it all the way out. I might do this. You know, I can get up underneath it. Whoop, get up underneath it here, and I could take some pieces out like that. You know, that has shortened it up, right? See the difference in that? I could go all the way to there, and now you can tell I pruned it, okay? But I've gotten rid of 1.5 feet of height. I have not changed my shape. Now this is gonna fill back in and go right back down to where it was in 2026. Does that make sense? So it's not just walk along the edge and do that. Okay, I'm gonna have a twiggy, nasty mess. It's finding those little places where I can thin out an entire branch or head it back to where I've already got another one that will just go down the same direction, okay? So lace leaf is one. We'll talk a little bit about this again when I do the after winter pruning class, that first maple thing. But I can go out and thin out my upright maple any time of the year. I can do some pruning on that in the summer, the winter. You can do what you want. Lace leaf to me is one we have to find a nice, hopefully not wet day in February, March sometime, and get this done before it leaves out again. Okay, you have a much nicer plant that way. All right? So I'm gonna whip through here and then we'll do some questions. I'm gonna show you just a few things to think about here for the winter, some examples, okay? Now we're gonna make a mess. You won't get hit with anything. Should bring eye goggles in here, right? And eye protection. Now, here's a couple things that are maybe a little different to prune. Who's got hardy fuchsias? Okay? Who's got salvias, like hot lips? And I have hot lips too, I hate to say. I finally put two of them in. So things like that are perennials, okay? But they're kind of woody perennials, right? We look at hardy fuchsia, we actually get kind of a shrubby wood to it. We got our flowers, they're still blooming. I'm not doing this today, I'm not running out in a month. But this is, I bring the fuchsia and the salvia up in particular because these are two plants I do not want you to prune at all, okay? We're not gonna cut this down. We're not going to cut it back in the fall, the winter, anytime like that. We are waiting until spring, probably April, okay? And we're going to look at our hardy fuchsia wood that's sitting there dead, and we're going to look and see all the little green sprouts coming out here, there, wherever. Now, I can prune down to above those points and off we go. They bloom on new wood. I don't affect the flowering at all, but I just fixed my height if I want to go smaller. Does that make sense? I've found with hardy fuchsias, because sometimes I use the hardy in quotation marks, okay, we get a cold winter, we get a super wet winter, I lose my salvias, you know, every 2-3 years. I gotta go buy another one. I try not to lose hardy fuchsia ever because I choose hardier ones that are hardy up here and not zone 8. Don't buy zone 8. There's an extra tip for you today. Zone 8 has very little chance of making it long term. Zone 7, zone 6, absolutely, okay? So I just added, this is one called David. I just added 3 more of these to one of my shade gardens this year because I knew this is a good, reliably hardy hummingbird magnet that I will now leave alone and walk out next April to prune. Salvia, fuchsia, wait till prune. Who's got hellebores? Everybody's got hellebores. The Christmas rose, the Lenten rose, they're just gonna start doing their thing. You're probably like, what is he, crazy? Why would I prune my hellebore? No, we're not gonna prune our hellebore today. But I try to bring this in this time of year because I literally will walk out Christmas Day or sometime between there and New Year's, and I will cut off all of my foliage. Okay, does anyone do that already? Probably been to my class before because that's a good tip. So I take all the old leaves off because 1, now I can see the flowers much better, and 2, the main complaint we get with hellebores is aphids, whitefly, bugs, this, that, the rest of it. If I was an aphid, where's the best place on earth to hang out over the winter? Right underneath this nice, juicy, thick, sugar-filled foliage, right? I've got unlimited food, I'm sheltered, I'm happy for the winter. So if you go out and you look and you're like, ew, that's disgusting, don't throw it in the garbage, don't hate hellebores. I wouldn't even waste my time spraying it. If you cut the leaves off, throw them in the yard waste, there go the bugs, and now we have a brand new clean plant that gets brand new clean foliage. We enjoy the flower and off we go, okay? So hellebores, sometime Christmas before we do our next pruning. That's why I try to bring it up, all right? A couple more things. Who's got grasses? I love me some grasses. Ooh, look at that. I can go with the plumage right now. It's one of my favorite fall plants. I got grasses everywhere, all around the landscape. You know, motion, sound, the nice color in the fall. So we've got a lot of different grasses around here, but here's 2. We have a perennial grass that's obviously turned color for the fall. It's gotten its plume. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's getting towards dormancy. Then we have evergreen grasses, totally different creature. This will not turn brown. It will keep the color all winter that I get to enjoy in the garden or a container, right? So with the perennial grass, either I walk out there sometime here after the holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, before March 1st, and I cut that thing off, right? About 2-3 inches above the soil, and it starts over again, brand new, okay? If I don't do this, you're gonna get to next May, and you're gonna have all this brown with green coming up around it, and that's beyond OCD. We can't have that, I'm sorry. I'm just kidding. So we cut that back, okay? And we're ready to go for winter. You could do it in a month, you could wait till March, I don't care. We have some people that hang out, go south for the winter and enjoy sunshine. God bless you if you do, because I wish I will do that someday too. So I might do it before I go, because I'm not coming back till mid-April, right? So I'm gonna take a minute here this fall, get all my grasses cut back, and then I'm good to go when I come home, okay? If I have evergreen, I was doing this like I wish I had hair still, but if I had hair, right, and we were gonna rejuvenate this grass, we would pick the whole thing up and we would cut this off about 3-4 inches above the soil. Now this would be an April thing, only in April. We are never gonna cut back an evergreen grass in the fall, the winter, when it's still cold, we might lose it. We wait for it to be after frost, we cut that off, and we got a brand new plant for 2026, okay? So there's your evergreen grass lesson there.
Does bamboo fall into that category?
Bamboo is not one you would, if I have bamboo, we're not gonna do this. We are gonna pick culms out from the base and try to open it up. And if we're gonna start it over again, we cut the whole thing off, cross our finger. We just did this to one of ours, so we'll see what happens next year.
For perennial grass, do you recommend cutting it back or not?
Oh, I would. If you have a perennial grass, to me, you have to cut it back at some point. Whether it's, again, Thanksgiving, Christmas, January, February, I don't care, as long as we get it done before the new growth. Okay. Now, two plants that I'll do together that are greatly misunderstood. Who's got lavenders and who's got heather? We got a few. We got any heather haters in here? Usually we get some heather haters in here. It's like, I don't like that plant. It goes to a big woody center and it gets all brown. Okay, that's because we're not pruning it the right way, okay? So let's do lavender. Now, if we go over to, I live here so I can see it. We go over here to Sequim, right? No, I'm just kidding, Squim. We go to like the Squim Lavender Festival, we look at old plants. We got what? Big, thick pin cushions full of foliage and flower after flower after flower, right? I drive by a lady's house down here in Marysville, but I wish I'd get my chainsaw out and cut her lavender for her. So I think it's woody, 3 feet off the ground, and a little frosting of foliage above her white picket fence, okay? That's her thing, it's her yard, that's fine, but I'm gonna stop by it now anyway. So if I want lavender, and I want thick, healthy looking lavender, it's all about pruning. I'm not gonna do this time of year, but I bring this in because this is something, if you have lavender, right coming out of winter, when I'm out doing this, I am gonna cut down as low as I possibly can where I still have foliage. If this is in my yard, I am literally cutting this plant off about 3 inches above the pot. Now it's gonna break bud. I'm gonna have a nice dense mound of foliage and 10 times the amount of flower on there. It's as simple as that. When it's done blooming, I'm gonna cut it again. Then it blooms again and I'm gonna cut it again. But I'm gonna do that 2-3 times a year to keep the flowers coming and keep my plant non-woody and nice and low and bushy. Does that make sense? Same exact thing with the heather. Now this is just starting to bloom, so we're not pruning this until it's done flower. But coming out of winter, when this is done, if I just take my clippers, I'm probably not gonna do this for 10 minutes, you know, one after another. I'm gonna take my hedge clippers and I'm gonna lay them down and I'm gonna cut just beneath all that brown flower, right? Beneath where the flowers were. Because now again, I've got a dense, full plant that sets buds that summer that bloom again the next winter, right? This is all winter blooming heather. Is that making sense? So those are two plants. I have a lot of good gardeners. I don't want those anymore. They don't look good in my yard. It's not that they don't grow. They're great plants to use here for drought, low maintenance, all the above, sun. But if we get them in the right place, it'll take you 5 minutes to prune that. Coming out of winter, you're going to be much, much happier with those in the yard, okay?
The Kaluna.
So Kaluna. So this is our Irish Heath, we call these, right? They will read my article a couple weeks ago. I did the Irish or the Scots, right? It's kind of funny. But we have Irish. She brought up Kaluna. That's our Scotch heather. So those bloom in the summer But right now I have all the orange, the red, the yellow, the foliage interest over the winter. So if I'm pruning that, to me, I would do the same thing coming out of winter, because the Iarcas are very easy. We see them bloom, we cut them, we're done. The Kalunas, you would probably have to choose. I would want it because I want the foliage in the winter, so I'm not going to do it in the fall, but I'm going to let that sit all winter, and then right coming out of winter, we give it a prune, we shoot up growth, we set buds, and we flower always like July, August, September. We get a little flowers still, okay?
Back to the winter living.
Yeah.
So this year, I noticed that in the middle there is some dead wood.
Yeah.
Can I just cut that out?
Well, that's going to be the problem. I call it the donut. We get the heather that you left it alone for a few years, and now we get that woody center, and it's got the little donut of flowers and green around. If it's bare in there, cutting that wood is probably connected to all your stems, if that makes sense. So what I might try to do is lightly prune it, come after winter, lightly prune and see if we can get that covered back up. Branches, you might even take a branch and kind of lay it that direction so it covers back up the middle a little bit. But that's the perfect question, because this is what we have the conversation with customers. I just got heather, I just ripped it out, I got tired of the brown center, I don't want to do heather again. So if you replaced it, knowing that we take just those couple minutes to do that once a year, I don't think you're ever going to have that happen again. I mean, it would be that easy.
Can I do it now or wait?
I would do it coming out of winter. I would not do, yeah. I mean, in case I forgot at the beginning to give my casual disclaimer that I always do this time of year, we are not pruning anything that's evergreen, period. So we are too late in the season to go get boxwood, laurel, heather, all this stuff that keeps its foliage. What's the basic definition of pruning? I want to cut it because I want to encourage growth in a certain direction or rejuvenate a plant, right? So if we're doing that this time of year, we have no weather left to let that grow, harden off, and be safe for the winter. I see it every year driving around. I drive down the boulevard. There's Farmer Joe, just cut his laurel hedge one last time in early November. Guess what that looks like all winter? Brown, brown, and brown, because it all got frosted. New growth came out, it got frosted. Now he's got to do it again. So that's why I'm saying all that evergreen stuff, the stuff that doesn't bloom, the laurels, the boxwood, all those plants, Japanese holly, on and on, we're doing that in March and April because we can tidy it up, come out of winter, healthy new leaves come out, we got a great looking plant in the landscape all year. The blooming stuff, the azalea, the rhodie, that kind of thing, again, we're going to let it bloom in the spring and then do the same thing, okay? So we don't want to do a lot of evergreen stuff this time of year. Yes?
So going back to that lavender, if you've got an old lavender and it's quite woody at the base and
Yeah.
you don't have as much green at the top,
Yeah.
is there
So-
any way to rejuvenate that
Exactly.
woody?
So that's a great question because I don't like to give up on plants. You've always got like a 5th chance and an 8th chance in my garden. So if that happened to me, I would not, again, this is not the time of year to try to rejuvenate it. I'm going to leave it alone, and coming out next winter, you are literally going to cut the same thing, no foliage left, and you're going to have wood left. You're going to cross your fingers and toes, and a lot of times, here comes the growth, and we get started over again. If it doesn't, we get it replaced with it, and now we just do that every year, and we don't have it happen again. Yeah. Typically, plants are pretty resilient creatures when it comes down to it. Most of the time, doing that rejuvenation, you're going to be okay. But again, we got to wait to the opposite time of year because now we got sun, we got warmth, we got spring, we put some food on it, it should recover. Yeah.
On the boxwood,
Yeah.
I inherited them with the property.
Mm-hmm.
And this year I had to prune them twice.
Yep.
Did I do that too early in the spring?
No, not. I mean, typically, like this again, as part of this pruning series, I always do a pruning class in June, and that's when we talk about shrubs, broadleaf evergreen shrubs, because we have usually till mid-July, early August to get them pruned. So I'm not sure when you pruned yours, but typically it's coming out of winter, or we let it flush its leaves in the spring. We do it once in early summer, and that should be enough to do it. Maybe laurel. We're trying to hide the neighbors, right? We got laurel and we got English laurel. Maybe sometimes we do that right coming out of winter. Maybe we have to do it one more time midsummer because it just grows so fast, you know, kind of thing. But boxwood should not. You should not probably have to do that twice a year. Okay? Now a few more plants here I'm just going to show you real quick and we'll do a bunch of questions. Now here's 2 shrubs I brought in as an example. Now we've talked a lot about new wood bloom and old wood bloom, right? We've talked random plants all over the place, probably got you confused. But these are 2 examples I think a lot of people use in their yard of plants that bloom on new wood. Okay, this is spirea. Who's got spirea? Turn a beautiful color, one of my favorite shrubs, really easy to grow. This is potentilla, or what we call cinquefoil. This will grow all the way up into the Arctic Circle. Okay, this is super hardy again. These bloom beautifully, great fall color, nice foliage shrubs, easy maintenance, all the rest of it. But I don't have to worry about pruning on either of these because they always bloom. So I have spirea in my yard that right now, if this was the ground, the table is this tall and just as wide. If you came by my house in February, you would see it this tall and that wide. We cut the twigs down to a little mound. Off it comes in spring, it blooms immediately. I got a brand new plant every year. If I want it bigger, don't prune it. That's fine. It doesn't have to be. But I think most people like the denser pincushion. They got great foliage, they bloom very nicely, and then we have a better looking plant that's a little tighter in the landscape. Exactly the same thing with cinquefoil. If I walk out, I'm not going to cut this 2 inches above the ground, but if I walk out in spring, I'll go ahead and prune this because somebody might buy this and that's already done for them, right? So I would typically with something like this, we're not worried about buds because it's just a bushy shrub. This is something for me in my yard, I would take my hedge clippers out and just round it off real quick, okay? I could go farther than this if I wanted, but I've got my little mound set to go next year. This will lose all its leaves, look dead as a doornail for the next 3 months. And then here comes the green, leaves out, here comes my yellow flowers again next May, June, blooms right away again, okay? So potentilla and spirea, and again, this was in my yard. I'm literally going down that far. I mean, I'm gonna leave a small mound of twigs because I wanna keep that spirea nice and low and dense and bushy, and it's not gonna affect the flower, okay? Who's got butterfly bush? Okay, this is a little bit different plant for us in Washington. We have to be careful what butterfly bushes we choose because they are classified as a noxious weed, so we only have seedless varieties. So now, actually I'll laugh, what do they call it now? Summer lilac. So we don't get confused about butterfly bush. It's called summer lilac or nectar bush now, which is kind of funny. But this is a deciduous plant, okay? Still got some flowers out, still going. Great for the hummingbirds, the bees, the pollinators, all the above. So if I'm going to prune this, it is not now, it is not December, it's not in March, it's probably April. Okay, if I'm going to let this start over again or prune this, I'm waiting till coming out of winter, once we are warm, up a little bit, no more frost, and then I can do whatever I want. Most people I find with butterfly bush do the spirea thing. They bloom on new wood. So I cut this down to a little mound of twigs, and off we go. We grow, we get warmer and warmer, and then boom, July, August, September, we got our flowers back again for the summer pollinators, okay? So don't be bashful on how you prune back these. This is not the old butterfly bush that we all had for years. I had one in my house that probably was 15 feet tall. That is illegal in our state now. They're not going to come arrest you because you have one, but you can't buy those anymore, which is a good thing. They choke out a lot of native stuff around here. So we have a lot of hybrid, smaller plants, still bloom, still smell great, great for the bees, the birds, all that stuff, and of course the butterflies, but just a little tidier for the landscape, okay? So we want to wait on something like that. This is, to me, I put that in the gardening calendar. I'm always out the same time of the year getting my butterfly bush. See if you're listening. What else are we doing in April? Hardy fuchsia and heather's a good one too, but the salvias. I was thinking about those salvias. We're going to leave those alone so they stay hardier in the winter. Then we're going to cut those back after we warm up. Yes? Yeah, cut the flowers off, that's fine. We can always deadhead. I just don't want to cut the wood back. We don't want to open it up for cold. Yeah, absolutely.
So we inherited one of the 15-foot
butterfly bush? Oh yeah.
We can chop
chop it down and get it under
You can,
control?
well, if you want to start that over again, it will sucker and start over. You can go way. He's gonna break the 1/3 rule. Don't hate him, but he can do that right coming out. Do it coming out of winter. Yeah, for sure. Okay. All right. Only a couple more. Let's save those for last. Okay. So here's two little simple plants a lot of us have, right? Everybody knows what that is. I'm not going to spend time on rhodie because we'll talk about this rhodie class on how to prune. But this is it. I have spent, this poor little plant has provided you with these flower buds struggling all summer long. So don't go out and cut it back this time of year, please. Okay, we leave this alone. We enjoy that beautiful flower next April. And then if we are going to prune, now we cut it back. I mean, it's as simple as that, okay? Only do it once a year that way. You're going to have much happier looking plants. Same exact thing with an azalea. You can't see them, but this beautiful little Gerard's fuchsia, okay? Every one of these tips has a flower bud right now. If I walk out this time of year and I shape it or shear it, you'll have no flowers next year. So I have this exact one, and I love azaleas in my spring landscape, especially ones like this that turn color in the winter but don't lose their leaves. That's a beautiful one called Gerard's fuchsia. So that will give me color in the winter, fabulous flower, and then if I'm going to prune it, I can take my edge clippers or a little prune here and there and do that after it blooms next April. Now we grow up, we set our flower buds next summer, and the cycle continues on the old blooming plant, okay? Same with deciduous azalea. Who's got deciduous azaleas around? I've got a few in my yard too. So this is just turning color for fall. It's going to be the beautiful season here. But if I look, flower bud, flower bud, flower bud, every single one of these has a flower bud set from this summer. Not going to prune this in the winter. We're going to let it leaf out. We're going to enjoy the flower. And if we're going to prune that, it's next summer. Okay, very, very easy to do. Early summer, we grow back up, we set flower bud, we're good to go for the next year again, okay? Barberry, who's got barberry? Don't be barberry haters. Yes, they have thorns, but they're not that bad. They're not bad, they're not crazy bad. So barberry is another one of my favorite shrubs because I think it's a great combination. Fabulous foliage during the growing season, great fall color. I don't think people realize how nice these bloom because I think a lot of people go out in the winter and cut them back, which is fine. It's not going to hurt the plant. But I'm telling you, if you have barberry, if I don't prune this in the winter, right, all this old wood, I'm going to have beautiful bright yellow flowers for the bees in March. So if I let it bloom, then I could prune it if you like the flower. That's the reason I bring this in, because some people prune in the winter, fine. It's your yard, do what you got to do. You'll get the nice foliage, the nice shape, smaller plant, everything's fine. But if I let this bloom, then I prune, you could enjoy that extra season of interest a little bit coming out of winter, okay? Now the last two here are kind of more for fun, okay? So who's got a witch hazel, okay? Who's got contorted filbert, okay? Both great plants, very different looking, okay? But both of these strut their stuff over the winter, okay? So this is a great example if you think about your landscape. When does this bloom? When does this pop? Who has flowering currant? No one has flowering currant for the hummingbirds? You got one? I do too. So flowering currant's another example. Winter hazel. I mean, I go on and on with a lot of cool plants that lose their leaves, sit there dormant all winter, then immediately bloom either in the winter or very, very early spring. If I walk out to my witch hazel here over the next 2 months and I cut this back, what's going to happen? Why did I even buy this witch hazel? I wanted bright yellow fragrant flowers from Christmas to Valentine's Day. That's why I have it in my yard. This is never should be pruned over the winter. Again, broken piece, dead piece, bad crossing branch, angle, all that stuff, I'm fine with that, but I'm never going to walk out and say, ooh, you need pruning, let's cut you in half. You're not going to kill your plant, but all the flower buds that were waiting again for you to enjoy are gone. Now we have to wait a whole other year for it to bloom, okay? It's the same with the filbert. This is contorted filbert A, very cool for winter. Structure, twisting branches. These get big pink little catkin flowers that hang down in February, January, February, so they bloom in the winter. I'm not interested in cutting this back because I'm ruining my plant. The whole season I wanted this was for the next 4 months. So if I have this, I'm going to enjoy it. I can cut dead wood, I can do all that's fine, but I'm gonna enjoy this all winter, then next spring, I can go, okay, it's bloomed, it's leaf out, maybe I wanna thin it out a little bit, maybe I wanna head these back. I could take these branches back and cut to where I have a branch and off we go again. I'm not gonna ruin my plan, but I just am trying to tell you, don't cut your flowers off. Always think about it. You know, you brought up dogwood trees, you know, flowering cherry, you know, flowering plum, crabapple. I mean, we go on, redbud. All those plants right now in your yard have all their flower buds ready to go for 2026. Okay, so when you think about winter, when what to go prune, it's like, okay, thinning, yes. Bad branch, yes. Broken, yes. But I'm not gonna walk out anytime until after bloom and just cut my cherry back. I'm not gonna head it back because I'm gonna enjoy the flowers next year. Then if I want to prune it, that's the perfect time to do so. Dogwood probably drives me more crazy than anything. I see people always out in the winter cutting their dogwoods back. And again, I'm not gonna hurt the plant, but I could take you out to any dogwood we have left out here for sale. They look like little bishop's miters. There's a flower bud on every single branch tip right now. If I go out in the winter and I start cutting it back, I'm not gonna kill my dogwood, but you're gonna come to me next May and June and go, I got no flowers on my tree, what happened? And when we play 20 questions, it's like, okay, put the pruners in the holster over the winter, wait and do that after it blooms, because then again, summer, we grow, we rejuvenate, we set flower buds, we're good for fall, then we have the same thing again for 2027, okay? Is that making sense? All right. The last thing we'll do questions is conifers. And I just try to bring this up in every pruning class because what's our state nickname? The evergreen state, right? But we don't have to be green, we can be blue and yellow too, right? Every yellow state. So we have conifers everywhere. And again, you know, I was kind of half joking 3 weeks from today we're making wreaths in here, right? So yes, I go around and prune conifers here, tips of branches for wreaths, not hurting my tree. But if I have conifers, when you buy them, especially, and when you think about where they go in your yard, think about the pruning. That's the #1 thing to me, because evergreens typically maybe a little bigger plant. You know, most people go for a tree and then 10 years later, like, why did I ever put that next to the front door? I can't even get to my door anymore. It's got to go. We got to get something smaller, right? But if we look at all the evergreen, conifer, needly things that exist on Earth, there's really only 2 kinds when it comes down to it, okay? We have what we call whorl, W-H-O-R-L, whorl conifers. Who's got a Christmas tree in the house here in a month, okay? There's a whorl conifer. I look at my noble fir, whatever it is. What do I have? A central trunk, and I have concentric whorls or rings of branches. A pine tree got sections of branch. I get that beautiful layered evergreen look, right? Pines, spruce, things like that. Fir, true fir, like noble fir, a Christmas tree, right? All great examples of whorl conifer. Then we have what we call random branch conifer, or who's got arborvitae hedge. Thuyas, cedars, hemlocks, Japanese cedar, yews, juniper. That evil word juniper. Who's got junipers? I do, because I love them. Nobody has juniper. I actually should try juniper again. But we have all those as options of things that I can shear. Okay, I don't have to worry about ruining my perfect Christmas tree shape. I could shear this. I hate to say I could probably even top it, although I don't know that I do it on that particular one. But I can shear it back is the point. I probably have a little bit more flexibility as far as spread and height, okay? If I have this in my yard and I let it grow for 10 years and now it's over my roof, it's in my gutter, and I'm like, what do I gotta do? I can't just walk out and cut it in half. My tree's done. It's not ever gonna have the shape that it did before, okay? Whereas something like this, I can probably have a little better luck cutting it back severely. Whether we're talking about conifers like this, or boxwood from earlier, anything that's evergreen, we cannot cut to bare wood, okay? So if I look at this plant, these aren't quite old enough yet, but if I've got a branch out 4 feet, I've got all my growth here, it has naturally dropped its old needles on the interior. I can't just cut it off from 5 years ago and think that's gonna grow. That's never gonna happen, okay? So if we're gonna prune something like these, the reason I bring them in is it's a little bit every year or every other year, little bit. We're not ever going to let it go for 5 and then try to go back to where it was. You're going to lose. We think of that word evergreen, okay, and you probably think like I used to. Oh, well, that means it gets a needle, and that needle is on there for all eternity. That is not the case with plants. So 3 years. Rhododendron, 3 years. All those old foliage drop in the summer. We clean them up because something has replaced it. Pine, 3 years. There it goes. Okay, mulch, free mulch for the ground because something has replaced it. So we have to keep up on those evergreen things and not ever prune to bare wood or we're going to have issues, okay? That's a coming out of winter thing, but I think it's always a good example to bring in as you're kind of thinking about, you know, evergreens in your yard, maybe what to put where and when to prune them. This is always going to be a growing season thing, and be careful how much you go, okay? Yes?
So the one you have on the right, or your left,
Okay?
I've got one that's half covering a window.
Yep.
Am I going to need to cut it out, or can I cut it?
Well, I think what you're probably, before we cut anything out, I would always try, okay? So I think you're going to have to do is probably really hard prune it back coming out of winter. And if we cut it back to the point where it's brown, you're going to probably be replacing it. It's not going to fill back in that area.
It covers half the window.
Yeah, and so that might be a great example of, okay, I learned my lesson. Let's get a little bit different plant that's a narrower or just lower, and you could have the same exact thing there, different cultivar, you would not have to worry about that again. Yeah, for sure.
Can I have prevented it by cutting it every year?
A little bit every year. Yeah, exactly. Or not again, every year, or even every other year. You know, let it go for 2, then we go back. Let it go for 2, then we go back. You can keep it that way. Yeah. Yes?
The arborvitae and oxwood again, was that June?
Yeah.
Or
So,
July?
again, conifer, hedge material, evergreens, all that stuff. Either it's after it blooms in the course of a rhodiola azalea, thing like that, camellia, all that stuff, or if it's just for the foliage, we want to do that coming out of winter. So you've got probably any time from, say, 1st to April till about, say, mid-July, 1st to August. I want to have all that done by then. Let's get it out. There you go. All right. So, if you can, we'll stay and have some questions after class. If you're going to do any shopping, all the tools are on sale for this class. So pruners, saws, even if you need a rake or anything, it's on 20% out. So that's out this year in River. Yes.
So our coral bark is really dense in the inside. Should we
Yep.
haul up in there and
Thin it out, yeah.
thin all that?
I'm always honest with classes. I think most of you know me by now. You know, heading back is not the end of the world. If we got a problem, we got a branch out of whack, whatever. You know, if I got to cut one of these back that's out of shape, do it. But I'm never focusing on that in my own yard. It's this.
Well, the
You know,
shape is good. It's
I
just-
want to get that inside opened up. I want air. I want sun, and you're going to have a lot
That's
less
what
issues.
we're missing is the air
So-
and the sun.
Like with this one here as an example, if this was my tree, and I'm just going to do it because it's my tree, it's here, right? So I'm going to get in here. This is the nursery law. It's always the branch with the tag on it.
Yes.
So I can reattach that after class. But if I get into the middle here, okay, oh, look at that, it wasn't. If I get into the middle here, okay, you can just watch what I'm going to do for a couple minutes. I'm going to get into the center here, and I'm going to try to open this thing up. It's not this that's bugging me. It's just too twiggy in the middle. So if I get in here and kind of get rid of some of this lower stuff and open up this crown a little bit. See, there's another one. 2 go in the same direction.
And
There's
that
another.
can be done anytime.
This could be done anytime. This is what I was out doing, and I have a lot of maples in my yard, trust me. This is what I was out doing in June in my own yard. You know, it's like, okay, you're leafed out. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not that, but it's not this. Again, it's diving in the middle and getting some of that branch out of the way so that I open up that specimen. Much nicer looking tree. And you're going to see, you know, you're going to see trees as they age, you know, turn gray, brown anyway. If we have black, we always got a problem. But if I look in here, and this one doesn't have much, it looks great actually, but a lot of my old ones all have a lot of dead wood in the middle. It's not disease, it just needs to be cleaned out of there. It's shaded, it got crowded out, So I cut that out of there, and I've got a much nicer looking plant. So let's do a few more here. See, what typically, I will say this. You guys come down here and you go to a great place like Sunnyside, you buy a new tree for your yard. If you do this on a younger tree, you are going to have a lot less work to do on an older tree. I'll be honest with you. Whenever I take something home, before I plant it, even stuff from here, I'm like, okay, does anything need to get pruned or cleaned out? Because I'm just wasting energy that would go into what I do want if I don't want that branch in there. And if I set the structure right, I'm not going to have as much to do down the road. I've found that in my yard year after year after year. So I'm just looking for things like this. Can you see that? I've got two branches that are literally doing the same thing, okay? I take one out, I've got more air and more light. I've got a nice clean cut right down to where the crotch was that heals. I'm not leaving a stub. It's good to go. Now, instead of having two branches that would have literally paralleled each other going the same direction, I got rid of one and I've left the one that I think is better size for me. Here's another one. This is kind of crossing over in the middle, right? We'll get rid of that out of there. We don't need this little twiggy growth. In fact, we're going to get rid of all that.
Is there anything you can do about the height?
Yeah, see, if I wanted to, so again, I'm thinning right now. If I was going to head this back, I could literally take these down and cut them above where I have a side branch if I wanted to. If I wanted to reduce the height a little bit. Again, a little bit of this off and on is not the end of the world, but I would not try to talk you into doing that every year. I think, again, you're going to end up with a twiggy, kind of bushy maple versus something that has the silhouette while we buy the Japanese maple. It's got a little more openness to it, okay? So we're going to get a couple. Now somebody's going to want to buy this one, right?
So when you're trimming, you still don't want to do more than a third?
Yeah, again, with maple, I would not. If I was out here and this was in my yard, I'm not going to ever do this. That's too much wood out in one season. But thinning it out is not going to be the issue, especially if we're just heading back a butt or two. You'll be fine with that as well. Is it smoked tree or is it smoked bush? And it's the same plant, but it's going to be up to what you want to do with it. So I will say this. Do you like the poofy clouds of smoke bloom, or do you do this for the foliage? You like the bloom too?
Yeah.
So, I hate to tell you this, but we have to leave the old wood to get the flower. So we can tidy it a little bit, cut it back some, but I can't just cut it way back or I won't get the flower on the smoked tree the next year. Most people, I think these days, shear those or cut them back and grow them as a shrub of some size because it's more about the foliage they want, the fall color, and not about the bloom. If I cut it way back, I might treat yours like I was talking to her about the hydrangea if it was me. Because I like both. I like the bloom and I like the foliage. So it might be like, okay, we'll cut it a little bit, 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, and then maybe every 5th year it's like, okay, time to get you back down again. We get the foliage, we start to build the wood, then we're back in bloom the next year. Maybe try it that way.
Because we've got the branches are coming out just right off the bottom.
Right off the bottom. And you could cut if you don't want. That again goes back to the, do you want a tree or a shrub? Because I've had smoked trees before that were 15, 20 feet tall and they look like trees.
Right.
Most of the time they're going to want to be a multi-stem large shrub or small tree. So if you like that clean look, cut that stuff off at the base and you'll be fine. If you want to keep it bushier, that's the stuff we would leave and we would work on the top a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
It made babies when we first moved there.
Okay.
And it's not making babies now, but it is having branches come from the
Yeah. And then pop up back.
So do you just cut those off, or is it
Cut them off, because again, a lot of old plants like that are going to want to sucker a little bit. I would try to keep my original crown open, and if I got something popping up off the root system, then we would chop that off. Right at the ground level, you'll be fine.
Okay.
Yeah, you can do that anytime.
Okay.
Yeah.
What
Yes.
what do we do with our lion's den?
So lion's head maple. So I've got a big one of those in my yard as well. I always think it's one of the later ones to color up for fall. Mine's still bright green, and most of my maples are starting to turn. So I would wait a little bit until it turns color and we get a hard frost. But if you wanted to open it up, that's kind of a clumpy, different style grower. If you know Shishigashira, I don't know if anybody else has lion's head maple. So I wouldn't probably do, again, a branch out of whack. Come down a little bit, but it's probably going to be just like this. Dive into the middle more and try to. Oh. Which one?
It's multi-trunk.
Yeah. Nice. That's a sweet tree. So I'd start at the bottom and just open that structure up a little bit. Because again, I don't know that you want branching a foot off the ground. You probably want to get that up off the ground a little bit, then let it start to turn into our multi-stem tree. Hit. Got enough pruning overload? So don't forget, you can always call our staff. Frank and Margaret were both back here. They're great employees here at the nursery. They're both certified professional horticulturists. I am. We have a bunch of others around here. You can always send a picture. Bring a sample down. I hate when things get pruned the wrong way. And it's not like a lot of times there's a 100% way to do anything. Gardening is the ultimate excursion in trial and error. But that's what the point is Frank made an error. I made an error. Let us tell you how to not make that same error. So you can always bring in your plant, your picture, and say, hey, this is what I got. What is it? And how do I deal with it? Because, again, going to the beginning, the biggest part of this class to me, a little bit of technique, some good useful tools, all that's great, but you have to know your plant. We have to know, does it bloom on old wood? Does it bloom on new wood? If I cut it this time of year, what's going to happen? Plants are totally resilient creatures, but I think knowing the timing is key. And that goes right back to, does it bloom old wood or does it bloom on new wood? When I write articles and do all the classes, I try to bring that up to everybody in class because I think it's a major point when you're picking out shrubs. Do we want the flexibility of the new style hydrangea that I can do whatever I want with? Or do we have the room for a magnificent old school one that are great shrubs, but they're big? You know, and if I want to have that in my yard, okay, I got a spot I can do that in, great. Most of us these days are out of room. I gotta have a new hydrangea. Where am I gonna put it? Oh, I got a little spot right there. I need that flexibility because otherwise it's gonna bury something else in the garden.
Can you transplant that big hydrangea?
Absolutely. You're probably still a month away, but I'll do an article here pretty quick. I thought I'm gonna do something on dividing useful perennials and transplanting here in about 2-3 weeks out. We're gonna do something for winter because once we get hard frost, have at it. You got the entire winter to relocate, maneuver this, add that, move this, divide that. We've got a time frame to do that before it starts waking up for springtime again. Okay? Yes?
We've got an elderberry that's hard to keep under control.
Okay. Elderberry is.
And so we end up some years just
Chuck it back, yeah. And elderberry is a great example of, again, okay, elderberry is a good example of this because are you buying it because you like that big flower for a couple weeks, or are you buying it because you like the foliage? Foliage or bloom? We like both.
The berries can be so pretty.
Exactly. So if I have elderberry, that's not that I don't like the flower, but that to me is the secondary part. I want to look out in my yard and see that deep black purple lacy foliage on a specimen shrub. So if I don't care about the bloom, prune that thing anytime you want, coming out of winter, cut it back in half, you're always going to have great foliage. The issue is we cut it back, we're not going to have the old wood to get the flower, would be the part. Yeah, so either you wait and do yours in summer after it flowers, or attack it in the winter because I just want the foliage. Little flower here and there's a great bonus, but I want the foliage more than the flower. Okay. All right. So come in, like I said, check the website here. You got today, stopped raining for a minute. You got the store in there. With our computer system, I shouldn't tell you this, but we put the tool code on sale. So like that's all your pruners, but it's also everything in there that's a tool. So you can act like, oh yeah, I said I could have this on discount too. So rakes, hula hose, anything else you might need for the winter or for cleanup time, all that's on special as well. But definitely the pruners from the class today. If you want to grab a sharpener, if you run out of anything in there, ask somebody, because I have the sharpener we sell probably 300 a year. I have an entire case of them in our warehouse here. We'll go get some more if you need them. Okay.
What's the goodness on that gray one that you didn't?
Oh, you know what? I didn't bring him up. So this is the other one I didn't show. So this is what we call a ratchet pruner. Is it stapled? That's stapled. I won't pull it apart. But can you see that? It's got a lock tab. It's very light aluminum. These weigh nothing. But it's a different style pruner, or instead of, again, having to go like this and cut all the way through, this one, click, click, click. So I would click through it, a ratchet style, maybe a little easier on the wrist. So I'm always honest, for me, I can't stand these at this point in my life. My hands are too big, they don't fit in there. I just want to prune. But I have a lot of other people that say, no, I am done with that. I like this better because it's a lot easier on the wrist. So you can do what's good for you. They're very cheap too. These are like, what, $19.99, you know, for a good quality pair of ratchet pruners. Just a little bit of a style. Yeah. Thank you for noticing those. I always forget the ratchet. All right. So have at it. If you got any questions, holler anytime. We're going to be around here if you need to ask any more questions. You might walk out and go, that's the plan I have. What do I do with this? Because we still got treasures. If you need anything too, we still got the big old half price area in the back. So there is a massive amount of little treasures back there for half price purchase if you like.
Thank you.
All right.